Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the HaskinCast Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and I'm here. Man, I have an amazing interview for you guys this week. Miss Katie Marie Jones is such a dynamic and fabulous young girl. I was so excited to get to talk to her. We've been trying to put this together for about 2.5 months. I mean, between her stage schedule, her working with the Las Vegas Golden Knights as a hostess, it's so difficult to find a time where we could actually sit down and clear out an hour for each other where we could be uninterrupted. So I was so grateful for that and for her patience hanging in there as we tried to put this together. I did not want to give up. I really wanted to talk to her and get her on the show. I think that her interview is so inspiring and uplifting, and I think you guys are really, really going to enjoy it. So stay tuned for that in a couple minutes. First, of course, we've got a couple things to talk about, though, before I start the interview. I hope that you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving, those of you here in the States, where most of my listeners come from. I do have listeners in some other countries around the world, and I appreciate you guys all tuning in. I don't know what they do in other countries, but here, every November, we celebrate Thanksgiving, which is a really weird, messed up holiday if you actually look at the reason of what we're celebrating. But I take that all out of it and I look at the gratitude side of things. I swore to God I was going to stay off social media this week and I was just going to focus on my project that I'm working on. I've had some real struggles for the first time with a project. I've never, I don't have writer's block. I don't typically have problems finding creative avenues for things. But I really got in my own way on this one. And I really started second guessing everything I was doing. There's going to be some people that are going to be paying attention to this one. And I think I just let that get to me. And normally I don't. I put things out there for the world to hear all the time. And I usually don't think twice about it. But for some reason, this particular one really, really got to me. And I was very slow going. And then I found a way to just get through. And it was to take little bites. Don't just sit there and try and do the whole thing in one shot. Just take a bite, walk away, take another bite, walk away, let it digest, take it in pieces. And that worked very, very well. The first phase of the project is done and I'm reviewing it a couple of times before I send it forward. I want to make sure that it doesn't, that it represents me well, because sometimes when you're writing, you just get in that mode of just an outpour. And I think you need to edit a little bit before you send it to someone else to look at, especially someone who you really respect. So that's what I'm doing over the next couple of days, and it will be in their hands by this weekend. And then it'll go from there. And either it's going to move forward or it's not. So I'll see what happens, but I'm very excited that I completed it. That alone, I think, was a great exercise. And, being that this one was such a challenge, I'm really looking at this as a huge accomplishment. So as I can keep you posted, I will. There's a lot of issues with this one that deal with properties and rights and things that we have to get permission for if it's going to move forward. So can't really go into too much detail, but it's through the first portion, which was the hardest part, I think. So that's going on. And then, oh my God, huge shout out to Chase McKenna and her group up in Reno. They blew away their goal. They wanted to serve 1,500 meals to homeless people all around Reno, not scouting them out first. I mean, they don't know where these people are. They just made 1,500 meals, drove out in groups and tried to find these people, and they made it. 1,500 meals were served to homeless people in Reno, and 1,600 backpacks were made through partially their own money, through donations of materials, through donations of money. Unbelievable. So 1,500 meals, 1,600 backpacks. I can't even fathom those numbers. It was such a collaborative effort, but that was really spearheaded by Chase. It's her passion. It's her thing that she started, and she got these people together. She found all these people that are in harmony and wanted to be a part of this, wanted to help people, and damn, they did it. And I could not, I don't think there's anything that could really warm my heart much more than that, seeing that level of dedication. I'm still sad that this is even a thing. It's almost 2020 and we still have this big epidemic of homeless people and people that are out of work and, all these things that just don't line up as a society on the whole. And it's just such a sad thing that this is still going on. But I'm grateful, so grateful that there's people like her out there and all her team that are putting this together. And as if that wasn't enough, As soon as they were done with that, they were out Black Friday shopping. Why? Because they knew that that was a great time to get deals to help people with their Christmas promotion that they're doing, not promotion, but their charity work that they're doing for Christmas. So her link is in the show notes. Go check it out. And if you're inclined, please, for the love of God, help. If you don't want to help her, I'm sure there are other groups in your area or cities nearby, or do something yourself. But let's all help make the world a better place. Let's all, work together to bring everyone together, to be happy, to be fulfilled. Everybody deserves the chance to have a good and productive life, and no one deserves to be living out on the street. So let's do what we can. On a similar note, I am actually running a little bit of a promotion myself. For the Mental Sauna 3 Christmas Inflections album. I still have some physical CDs left. So what I've done is I've put them up on my website, and there is a PayPal link for you up there. If you would like to purchase a CD, $5 of every CD purchase goes directly to Movies Making a Difference, where my friend Diana Davis and her team is helping people, getting them rescued from terrible situations like polygamous communities and things like that. They've even helped prosecute some of the people and put them behind bars where they belong. And they can't hurt people, at least not the way that they were. I'm sure people in prison have quite a reach these days, but there's a lot that they can't do from prison, which is great. A lot of these people are coming forward and admitting what they've done, and they're going to jail, and it's a good thing to see. But the people that are the survivors of that, or the people that are trying to get away from the cults while they're still existing, they need help. And Diana's group goes in and they help a transition for them to get out. They help get them set up with shelter and food and, hopefully the start of a new life. And then there's all the people that help her, the people that give money, the people that give food, their time, clothing, shelters, mattresses, all those sort of things. So I want to do what I can to help out. So if you purchase the CD, that money will go to Diana's group directly to see what we can do to help them as well. And I've been very lucky to get to know some of the people that have worked with her group. And everyone that I've met has been just absolutely lovely. So thank you for that. And, the CD is hopefully something that you'll enjoy. And if you want to buy multiple copies to give away to others, you're certainly welcome to do that. Obviously, I want to spread the joy of the Mental Sauna series music just as much, because I think that helps people in a different way. And there's so many people that in the last 2 years, I've been so grateful to find out that they do listen to the music, that it does help them get to sleep, or it helps them relax after a difficult day, or if something difficult happens in their life. And some of them play it for their kids. Some of them play it while they're giving birth. There's so many uses for it. And I mean, when I put it out, I hoped that I would reach people. I hoped that I would touch lives. And it's just the greatest compliment that people are even giving it an opportunity to see if it will help them, let alone it actually benefiting them. And some of them, they tell me that they've been listening to it every night for the last few years. And seriously, that I don't even know what to say. It's the greatest compliment that you can pay an artist, and to know that something that I'm doing makes a difference in people's lives, a positive difference in people's lives. That to me is what it's all about. I enjoy creating these things, but knowing that there's a benefit on that level is the greatest gift I could receive. So thank you to all who have listened, who have shared, who've continued to listen, to play it for their kids, to play it for their families, friends, whatever. Thank you all for doing that, because no artist makes it without a fan base, and no fan base works without people sharing and letting other people know. And this kind of music, being that it's designed for healing purposes, that's one of the best things I think that people can share. So I'm going to keep putting it out if you keep listening. And thank you very much for all of that. Okay, so enough of all of that. Let's bring on our guest. Oh my God, she's amazing. And I think that you're really going to love this interview. I think, she's one of those people that you're just going to want to hug. It's like 5 seconds into hearing her voice. She is about to go on stage here pretty soon, next month, with Sweeney Todd. And we talked to James in a recent episode, my friend who's a conductor, and he's actually putting the baton down to act in Sweeney Todd. And they'll be doing that over at the Majestic Repertory Theater. The link will be in the show notes. If you're local or if you're going to be in town, make sure that you catch this show. It's a lovely little theater. And, I know some of the people involved in the production, and I love that there's so much going into the art here in Vegas, not just the big shows and the big productions on the strip or off the strip, but the arts district has just become such a huge thing in the last few years. It's growing exponentially, and I've got some wonderful friends that are involved in the theaters here, and kudos to every one of you for following your passion, for helping out, for entertaining people, and giving us something that doesn't cost $110 every time that you want to go see a show. So anyway, let's bring on Katie, and I think you're going to enjoy this interview.
The bend and snap.
Well, there you just heard it, ladies and gentlemen, a little snippet of her character of Elle Woods in the musical Legally Blonde. And I am so excited and so grateful that my next guest had the patience to take over the last month or so to find some time where we could sit down together and schedule this. And I'm so excited to talk to her. Let's get right into the conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, Katie Marie Jones. Katie Marie, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for all your patience and the emails going back and forth trying to find a time to do this.
Absolutely. Thank you. I know it's crazy right now, but I had to come on because it sounds like, so I'm very excited to be here.
Well, thank you. You know, I tend to think that I'm very busy and I don't have time for anything, but compared to what you've got going on, I have no room to complain. Let's just kind of take a look at the things that are immediately on your plate. You're getting ready to do rehearsals for Sweeney Todd. So you've got to clear out room in your life for that.
Mm-hmm.
You are, is hostess the right term for what you do for the Golden Knights?
Yes. We use the term arena host or arena hostess for myself because we're in the arena, because some of the other people that are hosting are either doing stuff outside or they're working for AT&T Sportsnet or something like that. But we're the arena game hosts. So yes, that is the correct term.
Right. You do some of the other promo with them as well?
Yes. Every once in a while, they will put me aside to do some internet like promotional videos for the team. We just did one for license plates last like a couple months ago. Things like that. So we'll do a lot of like internet promo for that as well.
You're a live host, which has a one set of pressures. You're an actress and a singer that has a different set of pressures. How do you manage it all between the scheduling and just learning everything that you have to learn to be able to perform to your level?
Honestly, when I take a step back and look at how much is going on in my brain, I kind of freak out sometimes. But when I'm in the moment, I really just try to focus on one thing at a time. Especially like when I'm at the arena, I'm not thinking about what I'm doing at Sweeney Todd rehearsal the next day. I'm really just focusing on what I have to do in that moment, at that one hit that we have to hit. I just focus in the moment and try to stay in the moment as much as possible. And same with anything else I'm doing. I just try to focus on what I'm doing. And as far as scheduling, that's always hard, but luckily everybody is so excited about all the other things that I'm doing as well. So they're very open to, if I have to miss a rehearsal or if I have to miss a game or if I have to miss a show, they're very open about that. And as long as I give them my schedule in advance, they're very, they adapt to me very well, which is such a blessing. And it's amazing that they are so open to that, because most jobs I would say are not. So I'm very lucky in that respect.
Well, I think that's something that you really created, though, because if you weren't somebody that people really, really wanted to work with, I don't know that they would really give you that latitude. So that really says more about your character and your talent than anything else.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I think I try as hard as possible to make everything light and happy. So hopefully that transcends to all of the jobs and they want to keep me around.
Well, you're on season 2 with the Vegas Golden Knights. So I think that's a huge testament to that right there.
Yes, that truly, I don't even know how I got that job, but I am so excited and happy to be there every night. And they're an amazing organization to work for, and so uplifting. Like they're their goal is to kind of just lift everybody up and elevate them. So down like every person that works there, doesn't matter who you are, everybody treats everyone with respect. So it's an amazing place to be.
Well, the interesting thing about a job like that is that you're exposed to so many people, and you're there to kind of get people pumped up, keep them focused in the action when the game isn't going well. You're kind of a little bit of a cheerleader where you're like, trying to get people to just hang on and hope that they're going to score. And
Yes.
You're seen by people, not just in Vegas where you perform in a play. It's people that go to the Judy Bailey Theater at UNLV or the Majestic Repertory Theater. But here you're broadcast on television, so millions of people are watching what you're doing. Is there, for you, is it the same job no matter what you're doing, that you're just there to do the best job you can? Or do you feel that you tailor your emotional connection maybe to the job?
I think a little bit of both. Like I said earlier, I kind of try whenever I'm at the arena or in rehearsal or in a play or whatever the case is, I think I just try to focus on that and kind of give my all to that. In the moment, obviously, when I go home, I kind of leave that at work.
That's good.
But yeah, I think there are different levels of emotional. I don't even know what word I'm trying to say, but emotional connection that you have to have for each show. For example, for Sweeney Todd, I have to really get into character for that show and understand Johanna's character and her background and where she comes from. And she's been locked in a tower, basically. She's basically Rapunzel for who knows how long, 16 years. And you have to get in that mindset. So there's more of an emotional connection that I have to feel for that. Whereas I think at the game, it's like my goal is to just get everybody excited, and it's still draining, and it's still a lot of energy that you have to put behind it, but it's in a different way. So yeah, I would say a little bit of both. I give my all to whatever I do, but the energy levels are probably a little bit different for each particular event that I'm doing.
Well, I would think so. I mean, in the theater, you've got, even if it's a sold out house, you have people that are just really kind of sitting there observing. You're not really seeing a huge amount of emotion. They're just kind of watching and absorbing. Whereas at a game, you've got people that are getting physically excited. They're getting up, they're cheering, they're, putting their hands in the air. So I would imagine that's more like working a concert where you're feeding off the energy of the crowd versus just you're doing your job on the stage and just hoping that the people are enjoying the show.
Right. And it kind of actually is similar sometimes, depending on the night and what show and what game and, whatnot. Sometimes, we get up there at T-Mobile Arena and we're so excited and so stoked. And, if we're losing or something, the crowd is just not having it,
Right. Yeah.
So it's kind of similar. And there's, some shows that you do where one night you'll have an audience that is just like eating out of the palm of your hand. And then the next night they are not with it at all. Yeah. So it's kind of similar. I would say for the most part though, at least with Golden Knights games, everyone is just so happy to be there all the time, where like the energy is just through the roof always. And sometimes when we're losing, it gets a little sad, but most of the time it's very, very high energy. Whereas in a play, like you said, people are sitting there observing. They're not exactly getting out of their seats and hooping and hollering when we finish a song. Sometimes that does happen. That has happened before, but
sure. Well, I think sports is very guiding, right? Like whatever is going on in the game, the people react to very consistently. It's very much a crowd mentality, almost like I'm telling you to do this and you do it. So you can kind of predict how the crowd is going to work. But like you said, when you're on stage, you might have a joke that you have to slow the play down to wait until everybody's done laughing. And the next night, two people cackle a little bit and then shut up.
Which happens very often. where you're like, I thought that was funny, but okay, never mind. I'll just move on with the show.
Well, and what do you really take from that information? Because it's not like you can say, okay, you know what, this joke isn't working. We need to rewrite this because one day it'll hit, the next day it won't. There's really not much you can take from that, is there?
Well, it kind of depends. I think if especially the first weekend of a show, I always feel like it's kind of a test to see, if this joke lands or, if the people are really emotionally invested or not. So if a joke consistently doesn't land, then for me as an actor, I always try to change it up a little bit and, maybe change my delivery. If it's obviously supposed to be a joke and no one's laughing, then, there's something wrong there. But I think you kind of just have to take it with a grain of salt for the most part and just be like, well, it's just that joke just wasn't for this audience and that's okay. Like, and you just keep going. But yeah, I think you can take something from it. I think what I take from it is just, move on, like continue, and still continue to tell the story instead of worrying about, oh man, they didn't laugh at me 5 minutes ago. Do they even like me?
Right,
just kind of move on from that and just know that you're still doing a good job. I think it's more of a personal thing than it is a overall lesson, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think the audience is really the biggest variable. I mean, there's always problems. A mic goes out, a light breaks, whatever. But, but the audience really is the biggest difference in the show every night. If the performers are giving a consistent performance, and by the time you're done with your 3 or 4 weeks of rehearsals, you're probably there.
Right.
Then it's just, okay, who are we dealing with tonight? And if we just keep the train going, regardless, then we're going to get through it.
And I always find too that if there's one person in the audience that is heavily enjoying the show, it brings out everybody else's funny bone. They are like, oh, that guy's laughing. Okay, I can laugh now too. So if there's that one guy, we're good to go. But I think audiences sometimes are scared to really let us know that they're enjoying it because they're very much so just watching and intently trying to figure out the story and what's going on. And unless something is like absolutely hysterical, I feel like sometimes audiences find it hard to throw a chuckle in there because I don't know, maybe they feel like they're disrespecting us if they stop, I don't know.
That's a very interesting take. I think here in Vegas, a lot of times they're afraid that they're going to be pulled up onto the stage.
Yes, because it happens all the time.
It really does.
Even in shows you wouldn't expect it to happen to. It does.
It was funny. I had just written a blog about that, how, I really would like to go to more shows, but that's one of my biggest fears is that I always feel like I'm a spectacle, even though I can feel like I'm completely unnoticed in the world. But yet if there's a potential for one person out of 500 in a room to be picked, I feel like there's like a big spotlight on me for some reason.
It could be you. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I had just written that blog. And then the next night I went to, I think it was Jabberwockies, and they were getting ready to pull someone on stage. I'm like, what was I just saying? And here it's going to be my turn. And it wasn't, thankfully. I've never been pulled on stage, knock on wood. But I think that is like a really big element of nervousness for people.
Absolutely. My dad, he loves theater and he, since I've been doing it, he's gotten way more into it. But anytime I do a show, he's like, okay, is there audience participation? Because I don't know. Like, he's absolutely terrified of being called up on stage. It's so funny. But I try to, if I'm in a show, I try to tell them like, hey, don't pick my dad.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Well, how old were you when you really first started taking it seriously?
So it's actually weird because I started dance when I was like a kid, like a baby, like 4 years old.
Wow.
But I quit because I didn't really know what I was 4. So, you don't really know what you're doing at that age, but,
right.
I really wanted to play sports. And so I started playing soccer and a couple other sports, and that kind of took up most of my time, when I was a kid. And then there was like this small drama class I went to a private school when I was a kid, and there was this tiny little drama class, and I had to take an elective or something like that. I can't remember why I actually ended up in the class, but I was absolutely terrified. And all we had to do was get up in front of the class and like read. We didn't even have to like memorize anything. We just had to read something. And my teacher was like, Katie, you're okay. Like you can go sit down, because I was shaking. Like I was
Wow.
freaking out. It was so strange. But that same year, like I just kept working on it. And that same year, we were performing scenes, and we ended up doing them for the whole school. And I, at that point had calmed down and could actually do it. And I just remember my parents coming to see it, and they were like, you're actually pretty good at this. You should look into it. I think I was in 7th grade. And I was like, oh, I don't know. And then I think I actually really, really started in high school. It was the same kind of thing where like we needed electives, and like I couldn't really play an instrument, so I didn't really know what to do. So I was like, oh, well, I did theater one time, so I guess I'll take a theater class. And then just from then on, absolutely fell in love with it. So I think probably around 13 or 14 was when I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. Obviously there's been ups and downs throughout that time, but
Sure.
I was very, very, very taken with the art form at a young age, but I didn't really start taking it very seriously until probably like 13, 14.
Wow. And you've obviously come a huge way from being terrified to just being able to go out and be in front of millions of people. I think you've done okay there.
Yes.
How does it feel before you do a show now, even if it's, not just opening night, but just kind of like, say the middle of a 3-week run? That's hard to say, 3-week run.
3-week run. Yeah.
Isn't it? That's kind of a tongue twister.
It is a little bit, yeah.
I'm going to stop saying things like that. If you're in the middle of that thing that I won't say, how do you feel before a performance? Are you still just as excited? Are you a little less nervous? Do you even notice?
No, I am still so nervous. It's like, but not in a crippling way. I think this is so embarrassing, but my hands get so sweaty. It's almost gross. But then, they dry and then we're fine after that. But right before we're about to go out, whatever my first appearance in a show is, or even in the arena, I get so nervous. But I think it's more of because I just care so much, and I like love what I'm doing so much that I just want it to be good. And I have to say a little mantra to myself or something, just to be like, okay, it's going to be a good day. It's going to be, we're going to have a good show, or whatever I have to do just to get myself in the mindset. But I definitely still get nervous, not anxious or anxiety or anything like that, but I get nervous and I get the butterflies, just because I love what I do so much that it's still exciting for me every single time, no matter if we're halfway through the run or opening night or closing night or whatever it is. I think every show is a new show. So I get super excited every time.
I love that. And obviously no handheld mics for you for the first couple of scenes.
Yes, we can't do that. They'll slip out of the hands,
Right. Well, fortunately, most of the time I would imagine you're wearing a headset or an overhanging mic on your forehead.
Yes.
Yeah, good.
Except at the arena, we have the handheld mics, and
That's
my
true.
first hit every time, I always have to like wipe my hands off on my pants or something.
You could always try like gloves with a little bit of Velcro or something on them.
You're probably right. I could get some like gold sequins gloves.
Oh, there you go. Well, and I don't think gloves at a hockey arena would be too out of the, wouldn't look wrong.
No, I'm going to get some. You've inspired me.
Yes.
It's going to happen.
This show is about changing lives too.
Hey. You've already done it. So
a lot of musicians, really more instrumentalists, when they're writing songs, a lot of times they really don't care about the lyrics so much. They are just focusing on their part, and then the lyricists will add their idea to the song, and the musicians don't really care what the song is about. Is it important to you when you're looking at taking on a new project that you have a connection to the storyline, or do you just look at it as, I can play this character because I'm an actor?
That's kind of a hard question, but I really, no, it's not. It's not a hard question. I know the answer. have actually turned down a few projects because I didn't connect with the story and I didn't feel like I would be able to do as good of a job as someone else um, that maybe connected with the show a little bit more. And I've also been in the position where I've been in a show, and as hard as I tried and as much as I, wanted to connect with, maybe I connected with the character, but not so much the show or vice versa. I feel it was really, really hard for me to feel genuine and honest in the performance, which I think did a lot to, I don't know, you always want the audience to not know that you're second guessing yourself, so
Sure.
you want them to be right there with you and believing everything that you say and feel and all that. And if you can't do that yourself, then the audience is going to call you out. They're going to know
Sure.
that you don't feel this way. So I think for me, I try to do projects that I emotionally connect to, or just in some way connect to, because it helps me, well, it helps the audience, but it also helps me just be able to be honest and in the moment and truly connect to the piece that I'm working on. But there have been some shows where I've mostly just connected to the character and then played my role in the show. But I would say, yeah, I try to only do things that I feel very strongly about, because there's somebody else that probably connects to that show way more than me, and they deserve to be able to be in, you know what I mean? They deserve to be able to be in that show as well. And I would hate to be the person to take that away from someone who might, kill it, like totally kill the show,
Right.
So I think that's kind of my perspective on it. But luckily, for the most part, I feel like there's always something in a show that I can connect with too. So
I'm just going to say that was the best answer ever.
really,
Yes, I love that, because it's not always about us getting the job. It's about the job being done by the right person.
right.
And I mean, there's times that we're like, well, I really need this job, or, I haven't had a job in a couple of weeks, or I don't have anything coming up and I need to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And you take those gigs because you kind of think it's the best career move, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
the best move for you as an actor or not, because you have to make those decisions on multiple levels. But
Right.
to come at it from the standpoint of, it's not just that this isn't for me, I'm not the best person for this job.
Right.
I love that, because there is room for everyone in this industry.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, being the warm and bubbly person that you are, Legally Blonde was probably a no-brainer.
It was, oh my God. I remember getting the call that I got that show, and I like screamed. I was so excited because I actually did the show, I think it was 8 years ago now. And I played one of the Elle's three best friends.
Oh, okay.
And so, but I actually got to understudy Elle. So it was like one of those like surreal moments where like, you're on stage, you're singing these songs that you've known since you were like 13 years old. And you're like, oh my God, like I'm actually playing this part. It was a surreal moment for me, for sure. Because I've loved it for so long, but that playing Elle was just, it did come very naturally. We're very similar people, I think. So it wasn't hard, but that show is actually very physically hard, but yeah, overall it was an amazing experience. I'm very, very happy about it.
Well, when you did it the first time, was it difficult to get into your head the differences between the movie version and the adaptation for stage?
Yes, but I think for me, I remember my very first theater class in high school. My theater teacher took like a week to watch the filmed MTV Live version of the musical.
Oh, okay.
So obviously, I had known the movie, since the early 2000s, but um, I instantly became like obsessed with the musical after I watched it. So I listened to the soundtrack like every day. I was so excited. I'd put on full performances in my room by myself of the show,
Sure.
playing every character. But so I think by the time I actually got to do the show, I knew the musical probably better than the movie. So
Okay.
not too much, but there are some differences. But I think the heart of the show is still all there. It's 100% there. But they did a really, really great job at adapting the movie to the musical. Made all the characters very three-dimensional, which I feel like sometimes in the movie you're like, oh, I just hate that girl. Like, you don't know why, but you just don't like her.
Right. Yeah.
But they kind of give you a reason why now.
Even with her friends, they seemed a little over the top ditzy to me.
Mm-hmm.
And they're both very good actresses. I've seen them in other things. They're definitely acting very well in the movie. But even with Elle, sometimes I was like, okay, she seems like she's really ditzy here, but she seems like she's incredibly intelligent here. And I didn't really know how to read her.
I 100% understand and get that totally from the movie. And I think even in the musical, it's like that a little bit. And it's written that way. And I think for me, when I tried to kind of make sense of all of that, I used, how when you're with certain people, you kind of take on their personalities.
Oh, yeah.
Like when you're with your mom, you're not going to be the exact same way that you are like with your girlfriends, So I used that as like her point of who am I going to be right now? Because I do feel like, when she was with Warner, she tried to be a little more poised in what he wanted. And, when she's with her girlfriend, she's like, oh my God, yeah, totally, guys, let's go to the hair salon, And I think knowing like those relationships it kind of makes her look a little crazy because she is so many different personality types in one show. But I also think that's kind of the beautiful thing about that character, because by the end of it, she doesn't have to play those characters anymore. She's just Elle. Like, she's just who she is. And you see that because she finds who she really is instead of, playing all these parts. And she's still, her bright, bubbly self, of course, because that's just in her. But I do think, I think that shines through a little bit more in the musical than it does in the movie.
Well, that's a very, very interesting perspective. I hadn't really thought about that behavior through association angle before. But now that you say that, that really makes a lot of sense, because she is ditzier around her friends who are ditzy. She's very intelligent around the lawyers. She really she's almost like a chameleon, the way that she absorbs the environment.
Exactly. And she is, Elle is literally in every scene.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's like maybe one scene that she's not in. So that's kind of when it clicked for me that like, well, I can't play her one straight level the whole show, because then there's not going to be a reason to rejoice at the end. But what's the main theme throughout this entire show is the relationships. So I just really took a magnifying glass to each relationship and was like, well, how am I with my girlfriends versus how I am with my boyfriend versus how I am with my parents, and she's with so many different people throughout the show. There's very few times that she's, on stage by herself too. So I kind of just tried to analyze all that and figure it out. But I do think, that's the way that I went about it. I don't know if that's the right way or not, but whatever.
Well, it's really whatever way works for you and helps you bring out what you need to bring out to perform the character. But there's a couple interesting things here. For one, since you are in pretty much every scene, how did you deal with, wasn't there a lot of wardrobe changes?
Oh my God. Yes. That was probably the hardest part, because truly, even during intermission, I was changing. So it was like 2 straight hours of just either I'm on stage or I'm scrambling to get clothes on, so that's why I said physically the show is very hard because, just 2 straight hours, you're just go, 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 go.
Right. Yeah.
But we had some amazing costume people. I had 2 girls specifically assigned to just me. And then even sometimes we had a couple other people helping during some scene changes. But that was definitely the part of the show that gave me the most anxiety was oh my God, am I going to get this outfit on in time? And, they don't build in very big breaks for you to change as Elle. So that was definitely the hardest part. But we got through it. There was a couple times that I didn't get this hat on that I was supposed to have, but the rest of the outfit was on, so I went on stage. But for the most part, I think no crazy snafus. Everything went pretty smoothly.
Oh, that's good. And the other thing, the other component to that is that you have to do all this not just quickly, but you have to make sure that your microphone is intact because there are not going to be a lot of opportunities to fix it.
Exactly. That was a really hard thing. I know for the mic technicians, they had to, any chance I was off stage changing, they were checking my mic, making sure it was on, making sure the tape was taped still, and making sure everything was still going. Because if they can't hear me and I'm in every scene, then they don't get half of the story. So they were fantastic. Honestly, our people and sound people they were on it.
Yeah.
I was blown away by how fast they got everything changed and how fast they, made sure my mic levels were up and doing well. And it was awesome. But it's a beast. It's a beast of a show.
It is. And you guys did that at the Judy Bailey Theater at UNLV, right?
Mm-hmm.
I thought so. Yeah, I've run audio there a couple of times, and I just did the first 3 nights of Fun Home with your co-star upcoming James. And
yes, he's wonderful.
But there was a similar situation with that. The lead actress was on the stage from the opening of the show and never left. So if anything happens with the mic, what do you do? I mean, it's not very well written that she doesn't have at least some exit points for emergencies.
Right. And I think that show in particular, I saw it and first of all, loved it. It was fantastic. But I think that show is made for a much smaller space as well. And sometimes I think you can get away with not having mics. I think when I saw it in New York, it was, I can't even remember when it was, probably like 3 or 4 years ago. And it was in the Circle in the Square Theater. And I don't know if they used microphone. I could be totally misspeaking right now, but I don't remember if they did, and I almost don't think they did because that theater is such an intimate space that I think you can kind of get away with not using mics. So I think that's definitely a challenge at Judy Bailey because you have to have microphones in that space. It's such a huge space, and the space between the audience and the stage is pretty large too. So even if you're projecting, even if you're projecting like to the extreme, it's still kind of hard to hear. So I would say, audiences are pretty forgiving sometimes when it comes to audio issues. And I would say if something like that were to happen with someone who's literally on stage the whole time, have them run off stage real quick and get a handheld. I think an audience would rather that and try to forgive the fact that they're holding a microphone in their hand for storyline purposes.
That's a good point.
I've done some shows out at Spring Mountain Ranch for Super Summer Theater, and that has happened quite a few times because the elements out there are just like insane. You're doing shows outdoors. You're sweating more than you normally would because it's super hot and in the middle of the summer. And so mic packs go out and things like that happen. And I think during a performance of The Wedding Singer that I was in, we had our lead who was playing Robbie Hart. His microphone went out like 3 different times. They switched him into another headset mic, and that one out. And then he ended up doing the entire show with a handheld mic.
Wow.
And it was almost like impressive how well he adapted to, and I was on stage with him for certain moments, and I forgot that he had a handheld mic, and we just kind of like fudged a little bit of choreography that we were supposed to do, and I just was more aware of the mic than not knocking it out of his hand, stuff like that. But I almost think, especially if I was in the audience, like as an audience member, I would rather that happen than just not be able to hear them the entire show,
I would agree with that, because it's very frustrating to especially have somebody who's sort of narrating the story and you can't really hear what's going on. Now you're depending so much more on visual cues that may not be there because the writer knew they had a narrator.
Right. Exactly. So it's a hard thing.
But I think the real key is having people that know how to project.
Yes. That too. I think, and it's hard because there are certain spaces where the sound just kind of eats you up.
Yes.
You could be screaming and people still can barely hear you. So, and I think honestly, I think Judy Bailey is kind of one of those theaters where it's made in such a way where sound bounces, but in such a weird way that sometimes, depending on what spot you're standing in, you could hear them like they're whispering next to you if they're across the stage from you, and then sometimes they're standing right next to you, you can't even hear them. So it is a weird space to work in. Beautiful theater, I absolutely loved it, but that theater in particular, I know it's hard sound wise for sure.
It is.
So projecting definitely is a must in that theater, even if you have a mic.
I agree. And it is challenging because the stage is incredibly tall. So the sound, is going to be affected by that. It's very deep. So the sound's going to be affected by that. Then you've got the pit between the performers and the audience. And then the audience, that it's very high tiered. So there's people that are very high up, up where we were in the sound booth. There's so many challenges in that theater. So if you don't have good equipment and you don't have good redundant backup ideas or methods to handle that, it can be a very challenging theater to work in. But it's also such a beautiful theater. How do you not want to perform there?
Exactly. I remember our first day on stage for Legally Blonde. I was just like, oh my God, I get to perform here.
Right.
It's just it's a cool layout because you're looking at the audience upward, which is weird.
Right.
Because you can honestly, I mean, sometimes depending on, where the lighting is positioned, you can't see a lot of people, but I remember the first time or opening night when I first came out, like seeing pretty much everyone in the audience and just being like, wow, okay, like this is very cool. You can see their emotions and how they're feeling or how they're not feeling,
Sure.
So it's a really beautiful space to work in too.
It really is. I'm so glad that you got the chance to do that. And I hope that, anyone that lives here in Vegas or is in the Vegas area gets a chance to see a show there, because even just walking in, it's very impressive. And the people that do the set design there always do a wonderful job, and the lighting's always good. I mean, it's very top-notch productions. Definitely.
It was a really great experience overall. Casting's usually great. They put on really, really great shows there. So I agree 100%.
Yeah. The first one that I was brought in to work on was Pippin, and just walking in, seeing the costumes, seeing the stage design, the set design, I was blown away by the quality because I really didn't know what to expect, to be honest.
Right.
And I just thought, wow, this is going to be something spectacular. I hope I can make the audio okay, because if I can't, that was a lot of work for nothing from everyone else. What kind of direction do you like? What kind of directors do you like to work with? Is there a style that you prefer as an actor?
I kind of take every director at face value, I feel. Okay. Well, right now I'm working with Troy Hurd, and I've done 4 shows with him, I think. No, this is my 5th show with him, doing Sweeney Todd. And he is honestly one of my favorite directors to work with, because he will get you there no matter what. Like somehow he has a way of just digging really deep and making you think of things that you've probably, like, even if you've seen and read and heard the score, he puts things to a perspective where you're like, man, I never thought about that. That's amazing. And it really, really kind of gets you way more into the show than you probably ever thought you were going to. So I really like directors that focus mostly on storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
I think that a lot of times I've been a part of other shows where they're so focused on how everybody looks, or how everybody, how the set looks, or, all of the outside elements, which are always important, but they tend to miss the heart of the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why I love working with Troy so much, because no matter what, I mean, we always have shows that look very great there as well, and sound good and all that stuff too, but his main focus and priority is what story are we telling, and how can we get that point across to the audience. And I think that's for me, that's always the most important thing too. Like, I could be wearing a paper bag, but as long as I am doing my job on stage and know what story I'm telling and can portray that to the audience, they're going to feel something, no matter what I'm wearing,
Right.
So I don't know if that really answers your question, but kind of.
Well, kind of, yeah. I mean, there's directors that are very aggressive. There are directors that, like, you do it my way, and if you're not going to do it my way, get out. And then there's directors that understand when they have a talented actress who knows what they're doing, they kind of give you that leeway that you can really bring out the character in yourself. Obviously, working with people multiple times, you've been through the growing pains. You know what to expect from them. They know what they've got with you. And the only show that I've been to that Troy worked on at the Majestic Repertory was Animal Farm.
Okay.
I was blown away by just in that little space. They really made you feel like you were on a farm. I mean, they brought in all this dirt. They put up a little wooden fence. I mean, they really, really gave you the feel with the sound design and everything that you were actually there with the animals. And I thought they really make good use of that space. I like that theater.
Absolutely. I love it. This is, so I've worked with him, I think I just said 5 times. I think that's correct. But this is only my 3rd show in that space. I did Marie Antoinette and then Cabaret. But both of those shows, he does such an amazing job at creating an environment as well. Like, it's not just about, the costumes and the sets. It's more about, like, especially with sound design and lighting, like, you literally feel like when we did Cabaret, you felt like you were in this dingy nightclub the entire show. Like, you felt like you were a part of it. And I think he has such a amazing way of bringing those elements all together to make you, it makes it easy for the audience to buy into what you're saying and doing because they feel like they're a part of it,
Right.
But as far as hands-on, hands-off directors, I would say I kind of like somewhere in the middle, where maybe at first just kind of see what we naturally put together. And like, if we're blocking a scene, just kind of, Troy likes to, read through the scene first, just straight up, like, not really try to block it at first. So we just read it so we understand the text and what we're saying, and then get it on its feet and kind of just see where we naturally stand and what we naturally do. And then he kind of directs us from there. So I love that style because it gives me a chance to get my brain going and working and being like, okay, well, here's the window and here's the chair and here's the this. So, naturally, what would I do? And I get my brain going, and then, we'll do the scene, and he'll be like, okay, great, cool. But on this one part, you sit here, and can I have you stand on this, and things like that. I love that style versus, okay, I'm going to give you your blocking and you have to do exactly this before we even you show that person what we can do. I don't love I can understand for certain shows, like with national tours, and if you're a Broadway replacement or things like that, like the show is already put into place. So you kind of have to step into that world as the last person
Right.
would have,
Yeah.
I understand that to an extent, but, as far as creating the show for the first time, I really like that kind of middle ground where it's like, all right, let's see what you got first. And then, I'll come in and put some finishing touches on it, make it look prettier and make it, you know, give you some levels and give you some insight and stuff like that. So I would say that's kind of my preferred directing method.
Well, that makes sense. And it seems to me a reasonable progression to say, let's really get to know the script and let's really form our characters to the best that we can. Then we'll start adding in other components like the blocking and the lighting and all that, because you don't want to be saying, okay, I have to remember to take a 4-step arc around the left side of this chair. And oh, by the way, you're not saying your line right. So you're going to have to fix that at the same time. Like those other elements should almost be things that you're adding sort of subliminally as you're just, adding those spices to your character's dialogue and action.
Yes, absolutely. I 100% agree. I think that for me too, I don't like to come into a show off book either, because I feel like sometimes unless it's a very short period of time and you like really need to have your lines completely memorized and whatnot, because I feel like I like to get the lines ingrained into my body the way that I'm going to do them in the show. So while we're doing blocking, the first couple rehearsals or the first couple times we do this scene, like I'll use my book and kind of do the blocking with it. And then I'll put my book down and try to do it without, because, you obviously have to get off book, but I think it's like you said, subliminally, like you kind of ingrain the words into your body as you're moving as well, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So that's...
Well, one thing that's always impressed me about actors, and with the few productions I've been involved with the actors directly, as opposed to just doing audio or music, is that when a director, like you guys do a rehearsal, and then the director's like, okay, I have some notes. At this point, when he says this, can you come into the room instead of when he says that? Or can you step off a second earlier? Like, how do you integrate all those things when you're already kind of have that set, here's what I'm doing in my head?
I think that's such a that really actually is a hard question, because for me, I think I have this like small cavity in my brain that like keeps all the notes while I'm doing the show. And somehow, like in Legally Blonde, that happened a lot, because we really didn't get the stage until about a week before
we
opened. Yeah. So maybe a week and a half, but so, there were lots and lots of notes, and especially playing Elle, I'm in every scene. So obviously, there's going to be more notes. So I think for that in particular, I took note of all the notes and just kind of, I didn't try to like go up on stage and redo it. But what I did was during like tech rehearsals or during, when we were running the full show, I somehow like would keep the notes in my brain. And as we were doing it, I'm like, oh yeah, Keenan told me to do that right here. So I'm going to try it and see if he likes it better. I think it's kind of like as you go, as you're in the scene, you remember what the note they gave you was.
Oh, that makes
sense. At least
sense.
that's how I work. I don't know. That's how I work. I don't know how other actors work, but I, some people will want to, before the show, go run it and show the director and be like, hey, did you like that? I can put it into the show tonight or whatever. And I think like for big changes, that's really important. But if it's just like, hey, can you walk in the room like half a second earlier, half a second later? Like that's just something that you kind of do as you go along, I think.
Yeah, and it's probably hard for a lot of people to define some of these questions that I'm asking you, because I think a lot of things that we do, we just do without necessarily stopping and thinking about it. So I really appreciate you, looking at these.
Trying to figure it out.
Yeah. But you mentioned, so you did Marie Antoinette and then you did Cabaret. Obviously, a huge contrast in characters, in everything. I mean, you're going from having basically your hands and your head exposed to almost all of you exposed. Is that what is the bigger challenge for you, or is one of the two more empowering for you?
To this day, Marie Antoinette is still my favorite thing I've ever done.
Really?
Yeah. And it was play, which is, I mean, I've done plays before, but my degree's in musical theater. I'm a musical theater kid, but, that show was so incredible, like, to work on. The cast was absolutely amazing. And the story, Marie Antoinette's story is so insane, that, like, the fact that I got to tell it was just mind blowing. But the show itself, I think that character, I physically, like, stripped down during that show. Like, I started, with these gorgeous, giant, amazing costumes and wigs and makeup. And by the end of the show, when Marie Antoinette is imprisoned, I had basically like just a simple, like, frock basically on, and the wigs were gone. I had my natural hair in, like, braids, and I actually, at one point, Marie Antoinette has this, like, mental breakdown in the middle of the show, and she's just screaming and reliving her whole life and crying and just so emotional. And during that moment, I was, like, ripping my eyelashes off, and, well, fake eyelashes off.
Well, thankfully, yeah.
Not my real ones.
One and only performance of this show, folks.
Right. I know. Just gonna rip my whole face off. It's fine. But I was ripping my eyelashes off and, taking my makeup off. So by the end of the show, when I actually, got executed, I was completely stripped down, like, barefaced, just this small little dress. And it was such an emotional roller coaster, that show, that I honestly, like, had to go home and sleep every night because I was so exhausted from that performance. So that one was so emotionally, like, exhausting, but at the same time there was so many, like, that character is so hoity-toity and funny and silly, and then to see her at the end just be completely broken, it's, like, pretty heartbreaking, even though knowing what she did was so wrong.
Sure.
You still kind of, the writing of the show is so brilliant that you still kind of really feel for her, like, you understand her story by the end of it, which is amazing. But being in that show versus being in Cabaret, I actually played Fraulein Kost in Cabaret, and doubled as one of the Kit Kat girls. And that show, we physically actually did strip down. We were at one point during Don't Tell Mama did a burlesque act, so we had just had, like, pasties and little, like, boy shorts on by the end of the show. So that one, I would actually say, weirdly enough, the shows are pretty similar as far as, like, emotional depth. Because Cabaret is a hard-hitting show by the end of it. Yes. There's so much to that show, and my character, I don't play villains very often.
Yeah,
I wonder why.
But that's not really your personality. You're really much more like an Elle Woods kind of person.
Very much so. But Fraulein Kost, like, she kind of is a survivor, so she just does everything she possibly can to be one step ahead and to be to survive. And at one point she sings this Nazi anthem at a party between a Jew and a German, and completely turns the entire room against this couple that is just in love and trying to live their lives. And that was because she needed to prove that she was strong. She was a strong woman, and nobody could take her down. So in a weird sense, Fraulein Kost and Marie Antoinette are actually very similar in that aspect. So as far as characters, there's a lot more that I had with Marie Antoinette, a lot more scene work and all that to get that character. But with Berlin Cost, there's a lot less. But they're actually weirdly similar, and I'm only realizing that now. But but yeah. So as far as and we actually did those shows back to back. So I did Marie Antoinette and then jumped right into Cabaret. So
wow.
I mean, they're totally different worlds, but the same kind of emotional depth to both of those shows, actually. So it was a very emotional couple months for me.
Wow. And here I was, as you were talking about, I was thinking, wow, that was a terrible comparison I made. And it turned out it wasn't. I wouldn't have considered that. But you said, talking about how you would feel bad for Marie Antoinette, that reminded me when I read The Chamber by John Grisham, which was about this guy's great uncle or whoever it was in his family who was imprisoned, and he was sentenced to the gas chamber, and he was trying to free him. You almost put aside what it was the person that the person did wrong, because the explanation of what's about to happen to them when they go into the gas chamber is so horrific.
Horrible. Yeah.
That you really are like, nobody deserves that. I don't care what they do. You really set aside the crime and the damage that they caused from the punishment that they get. It's a really weird thing. And I didn't get that in the movie at all, but reading the book, it was very descriptive.
And honestly, I feel like those are some of my favorite kinds of stories and plays and musicals. Even is just almost the anti-hero. It's like because you understand that every human has so many different facets to them, and some people are just doing what they have to survive. Some people are doing what they think is best, and it's absolutely horrible, but they truly are just ignorant to that. And they don't know any better. And that for Marie Antoinette, I feel like that was her downfall, is that she was never educated. So she just didn't know. And that was like her ignorance was her downfall, and she completely, it ruined her life and ended in her death,
Sure.
So I feel like sometimes those are like my favorite stories, because especially historical stories like that, because you know her for her, her pitfalls and what she's done in her, what they tell you in the history books, but what they don't tell you is the interesting part. What they don't you get the Wikipedia version of what they did,
right,
but you don't understand their actual story. And I remember after my mom saw the show, she was like, growing up, I always hated Marie Antoinette because of, everything that she did and the downfall of France and all of that. And she was like, I hated it. I hated her. But watching you in the show, it made me realize that she was just a kid and was put into a position that she had she had no place to be there. She really shouldn't have been queen, but she was, and she was a child. She didn't know any better. And you really get that and understand that. So I think those are actually some of my favorite stories, because you know that these people are bad, but you also kind of understand why they do what they do.
I saw The Whipping Man when I first moved to Vegas. I think it was like the week that I moved here. And I was embarrassed when I saw it, because I realized, and I love this kind of intellectual stuff. I love things that make me look at situations from a completely different perspective. But in my head, I always thought, the Civil War ended, slavery was abolished, the world moved on, it got better. But when you really look at it, and the part that I was embarrassed about, because I usually think things through fairly logistically, even though I can't say it, I do. But I never put into my head the fact that, yes, the slaves were freed, but it's not like there were plentiful jobs and they suddenly had education. And there were things most of them went back to working for the same people they were working for, just under different law. And it really made me just start looking at things a lot differently, going, I don't know everything that's behind what I'm seeing. And I think that in society, we're huge on judging people, especially in social media, assuming that, well, you should know better. You shouldn't be saying that because you should know better, not taking into account We don't know their upbringing. We don't know their education. We don't think about the fact that Marie Antoinette was a child. We just know that she did something hideous.
Yeah,
and we judge her for it. It's a really weird world. And you're really big on social media. Is that something that you enjoy, or is it something that you feel like you just have to do that to, to keep people interested?
Kind of both. I feel like it's part of the gig, when you're when you are acting or, any part of self-promotion, like you kind of have to have all of the, social media and website and all that jazz. But I enjoy it to an extent because I'm a pretty open book for the most part. And I like to share myself with people. So if I can, and that makes, one person smile that day, that's, I'm great. I love that. So for the most part, I do. Sometimes, like, you'll see, I will take like 2 weeks and not post anything because I just, don't feel like it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think there's a lot of people out there that are, overdo it on social media. And then there's people who, refuse to have social media. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. I enjoy it.
Right.
I enjoy it. I enjoy it for when I enjoy it. And then I kind of push it to the side when I'm trying to do other things.
Well, one thing that I really love about the way that you manage your social media, and especially I think I see you more so on Instagram than anywhere else, but is that I think you're real. I don't think that you're somebody that says, well, you know what? I'm supposed to be bubbly, so I better be bubbly today, even though I just feel like I want to lay in bed. Like, you'll just take a video of you in bed saying, you know what, guys, I'm tired today. And I love that. I love that you don't feel like you have to show the world that you're perfect.
Yeah. Well, I think that being perfect is just so overrated in my opinion. It's like, no, we all have figured out by now that no one is. So I can't try to fool people into thinking that. And I'm very far from it. So I think that way about acting too, like, people want to see real people do things, and if I want to sit in bed and drink a Yoo-hoo at 12 a.m. and tell everybody about it, and that makes somebody laugh, then great, but I think that's important. I don't love when people are, on social media trying to be perfect and amazing, and obviously, you want to put your best foot out there, but I don't know. I'll never put anything horrible up on social media.
That's good.
But, if I'm tired.
I think you're right, though. And I think, too, that when you think about the damage that has been done by models and I'm not blaming the models for this, but damage that have been done by models who are extremely thin and always doing things to show that they're extremely thin or that they're perfect. And then these young girls, they take that as that's what I'm supposed to be. When they see and when they see people's lives supposedly look perfect and things all the time, it's like, if you show them that you're real, then they'll know it's okay to be real too. And you get a lot of attention. So I think it's a great thing that you're showing people it's okay to be human. It's okay to be tired. It's okay to come off of a show and not really feel like mingling with the crowd afterwards. And, be human, be yourself. Let's just all take a step back and show each other what's real, and not, because I'm more likely to question people who are always being perfect than I am people who are, showing that they're human.
Exactly. And I feel like, as you said, I think the world of the influencer, I don't even know exactly what it is, but the bloggers, the influencers, like, I think what they're doing is amazing, and I won't, judge them for it, because they're helping people in a certain manner,
Sure.
Telling people, where they got their clothes and how to get discounts and things like that. Like, there's some health ones, and there's fitness influencers, and I think they're absolutely great. Like, I follow a bunch just for my own, personal needs and stuff. But I do think that a lot of them, they have the perfect house. They have the perfect decor in their house. They have the perfect clothes and the hair. And I think that kind of, it's like the modern day model, and I think that does damage people a little bit, to see that, this person is only a year older than me, but they have a house and money and perfect everything. And, I'm sitting here in an apartment and like in a big t-shirt and crying every day, like
Well, I hope not,
like,
but yeah.
No, I'm not specifically, but people take that and they think that that's the way that the world works. And it's like,
Yes.
no, I guarantee you that girl had like McDonald's French fries this morning, but she didn't post about it. So
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's the thing too, because that's the impression then that especially the younger people get of the world. And I watched this happen with people. I think that's a lot of why diseases like bulimia became a bigger thing, was because the expectation was so high and people were going to extreme I don't know what the right word is, resources or whatever to achieve that. And I think we're kind of doing the same thing with social media. So I really appreciate that you don't do that.
Well, thank you. I try. I mean, obviously you don't want to put your worst out there.
Sure.
But I think as real as you possibly can be, I think that's really important. Especially, if you are in some sort of spotlight, even if it's a small spotlight, and people can look up to you or see you and, want to be similar to you. I think it's important to show them, one, that, yeah, people like me can be weird and, tired and bored and whatever too.
Sure.
But it's also important to put out that message of like, but it doesn't matter what I do, because you need to be you as well. Like,
exactly.
I'm glad that, if I have touched anybody's life and inspired them, that's amazing. But also, like, I want to touch and inspire your life in a way where you are going to be you, and you are going to love you, and you're going to, embrace all those weird quirks that you have and show that to the world. I think that's the important message that I try as hard as I can to put out on social media. Sometimes not so much.
Well, I think that you do a absolutely great job, and I hope that more people start following suit with that as well. Because I think that it's, I think anybody that has any exposure has a certain responsibility to that. And I mean, I don't mean that it's like the way the world is on their shoulders or anything, but
no,
I think that we do have a responsibility to the content that we put out there. And I'm glad that people, there are people like you doing what you do. So thank you very much for that.
Of course. Thank you.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about Sweeney Todd, because that is your next big thing coming up in between Vegas Golden Night gigs and all the other amazing things that you're doing. What was it that attracted you to this role? Now you're going to be back in period clothing again, so there's a different feel to that. But what about Johanna is something that interests you?
This is going to sound so rude, and I hope it doesn't, but
well, you're keeping it real.
Okay. So I'm going to keep it real. So I have seen the show so many times, including the movie version. I was obsessed with the movie when it came out and I literally watched it for a month straight every single day. I was crazy about it. But I've always felt like Johanna's always played very just the typical ingenue. And at times, I would say personally that she's kind of boring, which if you think about her circumstances and what has happened to her in her lifetime, there's no way she's going to be boring.
Right.
She's literally been captured by a man that is not her father and shut up in a room. She literally can't leave the house. And there's a creepy guy looking at her all the time. Like, there is no way that she's going to be this boring, like, oh, sorry, father. Like, no, like she's crazy. She's going to be a little cuckoo. And, the fact that I don't want to say any spoilers, but okay, we'll talk about her dad. Her dad is Sweeney Todd, obviously.
Right.
We know this. I'm not going to say any spoilers though. But, her dad goes crazy and is starting to kill people and, have them being put into pies and all that stuff. Like, there's probably a little bit of mental illness throughout the family. Like, obviously he's pushed to a point where he ends up doing that. But at the same time, I feel like there's probably something there. So, I would say that might run in the family, and Joanna might be a little cuckoo. You never know. So I think what drew me to the role, I've always loved the show, but what drew me to the role specifically is the challenge of like, how do I make this character different than I've seen it done in the past? And already, we actually, Adam and I, he's playing Anthony. We had a really amazing rehearsal with Troy a couple days ago, where we staged Kiss Me, which is the scene where Anthony basically comes to save the day, and he's like, I'm going to steal you away from here. We're going to go get married. It's all going to be great. And the song is a whole patter song. Probably like the fastest I've ever said words in my entire life is during the song. And, she's incredibly frantic and all over the place. And there's comedic bits literally written in the score. Like there are hits written in the music. There are comedic lines written for Johanna, like in the music. And I feel like every single time I've ever seen that part of the show done, it's always just, oh, hurry up, we gotta go. And they never take the time to actually like play those bits. And I think she's actually a really funny character, but nobody really ever plays her like that. So I think what that was the first thing, was the challenge of kind of doing something different with the role that I've never seen done before. And two, just the songs that she sings in the show, I have always been drawn to, and I'm very sad that they cut a lot of them out of the movie, because some of her songs are just absolutely stunning. So that, and I haven't sung soprano since probably high school, because I usually do a little like more of the pop musical theater, belting and all that kind of stuff. That's kind of what I've been doing the last 4 or 5 years. So yeah, I haven't tried my soprano range, and I used to have I used to only have a very high soprano. That was like my thing in high school, and then I learned all the other stuff in college, and kind of gravitated towards that and those roles. So getting back into the more like legit stuff is really, really fun and interesting and very exciting, because I kind of was worried for a minute, but we're back. We're
good.
Doing good.
I was just going to ask you if those muscles needed a little bit of exercise.
They did a little bit, but I kind of, before I auditioned, I kind of had been doing more higher soprano vocal warm-ups and trying to get ready for it. And I still have it in the back pocket, but I don't use it as much. So
sure.
So it's really kind of exciting for me to be able to jump back into something that I really haven't done in a while, and feel relatively confident about it.
Oh, good.
So yeah, it's good. It's very exciting. But yeah, overall the show is incredible, and the music, I'm a huge Sondheim fan. So any chance to do a Stephen Sondheim show, I will jump at the chance to do it. So that's the main reason I wanted to do the show. I love Sondheim.
I think that's a good reason right there.
Yeah.
But you bring up a couple of very interesting points. I mean, when I saw the movie, I haven't seen the stage play, but I've seen the movie, and I thought that Johanna was kind of more of an object in the story than she was important as a human.
Yes.
So I really like that you're looking at doing a different take on it, because I think that they really missed an opportunity with her to bring out a lot of flavors that could have really enhanced the story.
Exactly. And two, I think I find it interesting that they cut a lot of her stuff from the movie, and they cut, I don't want to give away any spoilers. Crap. Okay.
Sure.
We'll just talk about Joanna first.
Okay. But maybe that's part of why she does seem so less important in the movie, is because they did cut out a lot of the things that would have brought that out.
They did. They cut a lot of her personality from the show, and or from the movie, and you're totally right in saying that she is an object for sure, because there are quite literally, I think, 3 or 4 different songs that the title is Johanna.
Mm-hmm, right.
Like, between Antony's song Johanna, there's we're actually keeping there's a song that the judge sings, also called Johanna, And I think in the second act, there's a quartet called Johanna, and everyone's just singing about her, and I think she becomes like this object for sure. But for me personally, I would like to bring more of like a humanity to her, because I think that's what makes it boring, is that, oh, she's just this, pretty little thing in a tower. Like, and that's fine, but she's a person too.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I think that's kind of my main goal, is just having, the audience also understand that she's a person, and, these things are happening to her, and she's absolutely terrified and doesn't want them to happen to her. And,
right. Yeah.
So and Troy specifically is making this, well, he's not making it anything. He is just really bringing out the reality of the story. And it's such a sad, real, like, grueling story. And I feel like some productions of it kind of glaze over the reality of what's actually happening.
Mm-hmm. Right. And what you also mentioned too, that, that there's probably a little bit of lunacy in the family, because certainly, yes, he was pushed, but at the same point, when you're pushed, you go for a run, you go to the gym, you don't start chopping people up and making food out of them,
Right. That's not quite like, that's not what a normal person would do.
Right.
But...
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I don't know the story well enough, because I've only seen the movie, like I said, and I only saw it once. But if they were telling the perspective of the sort of guy that's admiring her, and he's not really seeing her with a personality, he's just seeing this sort of like delicious looking thing, then you kind of would say, okay, well, it makes sense that she's an object. But I didn't really get the sense that that's how the story was told.
No. And I don't think it is. I think, like, especially with Antony's character, the sailor, it's more of a love at first sight kind of thing. And obviously, I mean, there's obviously mostly a physical attraction with the love at first sight. But I think in the song Kiss Me, and actually like a couple little themes here and there, it shows the relationship between Antony and Johanna. And it is that like young love, but at the same time, there's got to be something underneath it. It can't just be, oh, I saw this girl and she was pretty, so I want to steal her away from her family. Like, again, no one in their right mind would do that. Like, there's got to be something underneath it. And I think, he's just captured by her by the first sight, but then all the other encounters kind of make him want to take her away,
Right. Yeah, it's definitely a unique story. I've never seen anything quite like it. I mean, so many stories are just really revamps of other stories that we've heard. But I do think that Sweeney Todd is a very unique one, and I could see an interest just in that fact alone.
Well, and it's kind of what we were talking about earlier with the anti-hero. I mean, Sweeney is like the perfect anti-hero, in my opinion, because you find out his story and what happened to him and how he was, sent to jail for literally nothing because the judge just wanted his wife. Like, that's the only reason why. And he was, wrongfully persecuted and sent away for 15 years. And literally he escaped jail, was swimming in the ocean to try to get back to London. And then a sailor picked him up and found him. So he's been through so much. So you understand what he's been through, and him just wanting his family back. At the end of the day, that's all he wants.
Right.
He wants his family back. And then he sees what has happened to them. And that's when, the revenge kicks in. So you almost you root for this guy who is wanting to slaughter other humans. And that's crazy. As a society, I don't think, we really normally do that. We're not normally like, yeah, kill that guy. Like,
right.
Not normally. So it's kind of one of those bizarre moments where as an audience member, you're like, oh my God, I'm rooting for this man to murder all these humans. Like,
right. Yeah. Yeah.
what is wrong with me?
But that's kind of the beauty, I think, of the arts, is that we really
Yeah.
can sway people to look at things from a completely different perspective that on the surface they would never, ever do.
Exactly. It's cool. And I feel that way. I was watching Dexter. I've just binge watched all of
Perfect
Dexter
example.
recently. It's the same kind of thing where it's you you root for this guy who's doing horrible things, but it's for a reason that you can get behind, you know?
Right. Yeah. And it's strange how easy you fall into that.
Right?
Well, because they make you like him first, and that makes what he's doing more acceptable, because he doesn't just do it randomly. Like, everything he does has what would be not a justifiable reason in the real world, but you understand why he's doing it. And you can kind of go, well, yeah, that guy was kind of a jerk and I'm glad he's gone. And you really don't think about him as a just cold-hearted murderer.
There's like a few moments throughout the series where, you know, he starts to question that himself.
Right.
And he's like, am I just this monster? And, you know, obviously it ends how it ends, but he eventually, I think, comes to the conclusion himself that he is kind of a monster, which, you know, you could argue still.
Right.
But I think that's also what's interesting is, like, he has enough, I guess you could say empathy. He has enough empathy to, like, understand that what he's doing is not quite okay or acceptable, but he has this need to do it, and he's doing it to get rid of the people that are just, you know, wrongfully, you know, doing things.
Let's say that you were in a police station for whatever reason, you witnessed a crime or whatever, and he comes in to interview you. Would you feel uncomfortable sitting next to him? Because I kind of feel like, I don't know if it was his social awkwardness or his fear of being caught that made him awkward, but I kind of feel like he's somebody I would have a natural feeling like, I don't really want to spend more time with this person than I have to.
Right. I mean, it's weird because he's weirdly endearing too.
Right.
It's like he's so socially awkward that you're almost like, oh, it's so cute. Like, so I don't know. Like, I'm not sure. I think, you know, I would like to think that I have pretty good instincts. So I would probably be like, oh, something's up with this guy. But I think he does do such a good job at being like this weird, quirky, awkward, endearing guy that, you know, you might just pass it off as like social awkwardness, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's such an interesting question.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't long into the season where I was kind of like, why is everybody so friendly with him why aren't they finding him odd? Like that, like, there's always that one person in an office that you work with that's like, you just think that weird. He has a freezer in his garage that he keeps children in.
Oh,
and,
for sure.
You know, he seems like he would have been that guy at the police station.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. There's Sergeant Dokes was like always, that's his name, yeah? Yeah, Sergeant Dokes. He was always on to him the whole time.
That's true. He was.
But he was the only one, which is weird to me.
Well, and I've heard that they're either bringing it back for another season or they're going to do a movie or something that's in the works for Dexter. And I kind of hope that they do, and I kind of hope that they don't, because sometimes when you bring things back, it just doesn't have that same energy. And you know, the writers have grown in different directions, so they're not in the groove of writing for that show anymore. I don't know. How do you feel about it? Do you want to see more?
Okay, so I'm kind of with the whole group of people that thought the ending was absolutely horrendous.
Yeah, me too.
So I would like for them to maybe try a redo, maybe not a redo of the ending, but at least like kind of give us a little something else than what we got at the end.
Right.
But I don't know if it should be a series. Like, I think if they're going to do anything, like Breaking Bad just did a movie. I haven't seen it yet, but I think a movie would probably be better than trying to do more with this series. Because I don't know. I don't think they should try to mess with it too much, because there was an uproar
right,
when it ended. So I don't think they might just be better off leaving it where it is, but I would I would definitely watch it if they did a movie for sure.
And I would say for the Breaking Bad one, El Camino, I'm not going to say anything about it other than if you were a fan of the show, you should watch the movie and make your own determination. But I will say it is worth watching.
Okay.
And that's all. I don't want to spoil anything.
Okay. I like that.
So as we wrap up here, and I appreciate so much the time that you've given me today. I know it's been tough. And you see that soft landing I did as we wrap up.
I love it.
Thinking that there's probably going to be some aspiring people in the entertainment industry that are going to listen to this show at some point. What advice would you give them as far as, you've done a great job of steering your career towards good projects. And obviously, you've maintained your ability to live and have jobs and things like that. What advice would you give to people that are trying to get to where you are?
I would say a couple things. Don't be afraid to say no. That's one that I had to learn really, really hard. But also, don't be afraid to say yes, because I think sometimes, for me, if something was a bigger project or something that could turn into something came up, I would get super nervous because I'm like, oh, I like my life the way that it is. I don't want it to change, or I'd be too far away from my family, or I'd be too, there's always the things that you could say would push you out of your comfort zone. Mm-hmm. So I was, for a really long time, was always scared to say yes to things that could possibly be a big deal. And I think also just kind of go with the flow. The only reason that I have had any sort of success in what I've been doing is because I don't have expectations for everything. I kind of just take everything at face value and take it for what it is. And for instance, with the Golden Knights, I actually started as one of their cheerleaders, and then was asked to come audition for the female host position. So going into that, I had no idea that this was going to be what my life was, and what my career was heading towards. I had no idea, but if I didn't, I was really scared, but if I didn't say yes to that possibility, then, I wouldn't be where I am right now.
That's interesting. And I think too, that if you had set the expectation of this is all this is ever going to be, I'm just going to be a cheerleader and that's it, mm-hmm. you might not have shown whatever it was that they saw in you that said, she's more than this.
Exactly. And I think just having an open mind to everything is, and not pigeonholing yourself into one category of I am an actor or I am a singer. It's being open, like I am now a host, and never in my life would I have ever thought that was going to happen. So just really being open to whatever kind of comes your way, and obviously weighing pros and cons and seeing if that will do you and your career well. But just, being open-minded, I think, is huge in this industry. And also just really being yourself and being kind to everybody that you come in contact with, because that's the worst. I know so many people that are insanely talented, but they're divas or have a chip on their shoulder about something, and they don't work anymore. And, or there are certain theater companies that won't hire them, or they're, this industry is very, very small. As huge as it is, it's very, very small. And you always just want to be kind and don't be afraid to show yourself, I think.
I love that. And I think that's the thing, is it's not just about, and this is the stuff they don't really teach you in acting school. They teach you, certain things, but the real thing is be the whole package, be a good person, be somebody that people want to work with.
Exactly. I think that's such an important thing, because there have been so many times that I truly think that there was probably a girl that was a better singer than me or a better dancer than me or whatever. But because, I've maybe worked with that director before and they know that, I'm pretty easygoing. I'm an easy person to get along with. That they want that energy in their room. So I think, it's always super important to be very kind and be a good person because you could be the most talented person in the world. But if you're a diva or, have something, a chip on your shoulder or something like that, people will take note very, very fast.
Yes. And we've certainly seen that in Hollywood as well, where people just, they just get banned. They don't work anymore. They start doing like really low budget indie films when they were in, multi-million-dollar big Hollywood productions. And it's sad, but, and I can understand it to a certain element because there's really no training that teaches you how to deal with that kind of success. Right. But at the same point, if you've lost who you are along the way, then you're not the person that they hired in the first place.
Exactly. No, that's absolutely perfect way of putting it.
Thank you. Well, Katie Marie, it has just been such a pleasure to talk to you. I'm so grateful that we were finally able to do this. I wish you guys the best with Sweeney Todd. Give us the dates of the show.
January 16th is when we open, and so we're supposed to close. I think it's January or February. I'm not sure, but I think we might be extending the show. It might be a little open ended, so we're not sure, but it definitely opens the 16th.
We'll get there. January. That's just get there because we don't know. So I don't know
when it's going to close.
That's right. And of course, you're going to get to work with James, who we had on the show not too long ago. He's putting his baton down.
Yeah. It's funny because I worked with him. He was our music director for Legally Blonde. So I've known him for a while and it's cool to see him in a different setting. He's doing great.
Yeah, I've only worked with him as a conductor as I've been doing audio over at UNLV from time to time. And I'm very curious to see what he's going to be like as an actor. But I wish you guys the best. I'm sure it's going to be very successful. And I love that you're injecting a new vitamin of life into Johanna.
I hope to. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
You bet. Come back and see us again.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Thank you. Take care, my friend.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. When it comes to bend and snap at my age, I'm lucky if I can even bend. How did you guys like that interview? Wasn't she just so bubbly? Don't you want to just hug her and just congratulate her for all this success and hard work? I love people like this. I love people that are just passionate to where it consumes them and they go for it and just give it their all the time. I really love that. You can catch her on TV on the home games for the Golden Knights, and you can catch the Haskin Podcast as you have tonight anywhere that it's available, iTunes, Apple Music, or Apple Podcasts, I think it is now, Google Play, Podbean, all those places. And please share, please give a star rating, please leave comments. Email me if you have any questions or suggestions, scott@scotthaskin.com. Thank you guys for joining me for another episode, and we'll be back next week with another guest. Cheers.